Assalamu alaikum, dear friends, especially in Turkey and Istanbul. I'm horrified at the news that there have been suicide attacks and gunfights on Turkish Istanbul airport, and it has led to, as of the last I heard, 36 deaths and over 147 injured. This is such a horrible news, I can't tell you. As far as I'm concerned, for me, Istanbul is the most beautiful city in the world. To me, it is a living example, a living manifestation of the compatibility between Islam and democracy. It is a living example of how Muslims can live in a modern society. They can be traditional, they can practice their faith, but they can also live in a thriving cosmopolitan city which is open to the rest of the world. So in that sense, this is not just an attack on Istanbul, but it is also an attack on the hopes of modern Muslims that the Muslim world will catch up with history, will live in a modern society, practicing their faith, but also being democratic, pluralistic, and tolerant. So in that sense, to me, this attack on Istanbul comes as an attack on the body politic of Muslims itself. I see this attack as essentially something that is not just a one-off thing, but we can safely now argue that Istanbul has become the target of a series of attacks from terrorists. This is the second attack in June itself. In January and March, Istanbul was also targeted by ISIS, and we also know that in December also there was a massive attack. So it is very clear that Istanbul has now become a target of terrorist attacks. Of late, Turkey is facing a two-pronged attack. Turkey is not only the target of terrorism by PKK, the Kurdish separatist group, but it is also a target of ISIS. And so essentially it is facing challenges from within and challenges from outside. Not only that, but Turkish foreign policy also has led, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, has led to a great extent of isolation for Turkey. It has been critical of the US and Europe very aggressively. And as a result of that, it has become slightly alienated from its Western allies. And with its support for groups such as Hamas and Muslim Brotherhood, it has also alienated many of the countries in the Middle East. But at least in this week, we saw Turkey making a kind of a U-turn on its foreign policies, pressing the reset button on some of its policies, especially towards Russia, towards Israel, and there have been signals that maybe Turkey is ready to also reset its foreign policy and its relations with Egypt. And I think that is all very positive, because at this moment Turkey can't afford to remain isolated from the rest of its neighbors and other potential allies. So the sooner it can improve its relations with Russia, with the United States, with Europe, even with its Arab allies, the better it is for Turkey. Some of my Turkish friends don't like to hear this analogy, but I would like to remind them that the Syrian refugee crisis is going to present a major challenge to Turkey. It is quite possible that with the rise of ISIS and the rise of Syrian and Iraqi refugees coming into Iraq, the situation looks very similar to the Afghan refugees that came and Talibanized Pakistan. And it is important that Turkish policymakers look at what happened in Pakistan, look at the impact of Afghan refugees on Pakistan's domestic politics, on domestic radicalization, even the weaponization of religious groups of Pakistan took place as a direct consequence of the Afghan scenario. So it is very important that the Turks manage the Syrian crisis much more carefully and with a lot more support. As far as the questions about what Erdogan should do, I'm sure he has many advisors who will give him his best advice. I can only recommend one strategy, that it is not possible for Turkey to wage battles at many levels, discussive battles with the West on the issues of Islamophobia, battles with other countries on the issues of how they treat their internal groups, their political descendants, and then fighting terrorism and insurgency both at home and from enemies abroad. What I would recommend to Turkey is to make peace with as many countries as possible. reduce its isolation internationally. But as far as terrorism is concerned, I think the Turks should move towards reconciliation with the Kurds, make peace at home, and wage war abroad, which means that they stop pulling punches with regards to ISIS, let ISIS face the full might of Turkish military and its allies, and maybe more aggressive steps should be taken towards reconciliation with the Kurdish population. Just 2 years ago, it appeared as if Turkey was on the verge of resolving this issue of Kurdish separatism, and unfortunately, with certain developments which are too tedious to go into right now, that peace process has derailed. So I hope, and this is my recommendation, make peace at home, wage war abroad. Do not pull punches with regards to ISIS. Make as many reconciliation, as much of concessions as possible to make reconciliation with the Kurds. Istanbul is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. We all pray for Turks. We all pray that Istanbul once again becomes safe. And I hope that this will not deter all those who are attracted to Istanbul from going to Istanbul. If we isolate Istanbul by reducing terrorism, reducing our normal visits to Istanbul, then we will only be helping the terrorists win. Once again, my condolences to those who have lost their lives, my prayer to those who are in hospitals and recovering, and my best wishes and support to Turks everywhere. Assalamu alaikum.